In the heart of Aji River, where the red earth painted every path and the birds sang stories from the trees, there was a house so big and beautiful that villagers called it the Palace of the Living. But even the biggest house can feel empty when love no longer lives inside it. Inside that house, Chief Obesai sat in silence. He was once the strongest man in the region. People used to wait outside his gate just to greet him. They called him the Lion of Aji. His name opened doors. His handshake started businesses. His wealth was wide: lands, hotels, water factories, trucks, farms, and more. Yet now, Chief Obesai was old. His hair had turned white. His bones ached. He didn't walk like he used to. And even though his house was full of people, he felt completely alone. That evening, he sat alone in his study, holding an old photo: his wife, his 4 children, and himself. Everyone smiled in the picture. But he looked at it with pain in his chest. He whispered to himself, "Who really loves me here? Who will stay with me if I lose everything? If I fall sick, who will feed me? Who will wipe my tears?" The silence answered back, "No one." He had seen the signs. His wife, Ifeoma, spent more time in town than at home. His first son, Ibuka, was already acting like a prince. Samto, the second son, only called when he needed money. His daughters, Ada and Kamsi, were more concerned about beauty salons and clothes. Only his last-born, Amara, still called him Papa, with that soft voice that warmed his heart. But even that he needed to be sure of. So, he picked up his phone and made 2 secret calls. First to Mr. Okoro, his family lawyer. Then to Dr. Namdi, his personal doctor. That night, the 3 men sat together in the study. "I want to act like I'm dying," Chief Obesai said, his voice quiet but firm. "I want to see my family's true face." Mr. Okoro removed his glasses. "Chief, are you sure?" Chief nodded. "I need to know." Dr. Namdi sighed. "What sickness do we tell them?" "Cancer," Chief replied. "Say I have 6 months to live." Please like and subscribe to this channel, it's totally free. It helps and motivate us to put together stories like this. Now let's dive in. There was a long pause. The air in the study felt heavy. Mr. Okoro finally spoke. "Then we must move half of your wealth." Quietly. "I'll open a new bank account. They must never find it." Dr. Namdi added, "And I'll make a fake report. I'll visit the house often to make it real." Chief Obesai smiled weakly. Let the game begin. The next morning, the sun rose gently over the Aji hills. Birds chirped. Maids swept the compound. A cow mooed behind the fence. But inside the big mansion, something strange happened. Chief Obesai didn't come down for breakfast. He didn't walk around the house. He didn't check his farms. He didn't even say a word. He lay in bed coughing, deep and dry. His eyes were sunken. His lips cracked. His hands trembled slightly. His family noticed. "Papa hasn't eaten," Amara whispered, sitting beside him. "Let's call the doctor," Ada said. Soon, Dr. Namdi arrived with a black bag. He examined the chief in front of the whole family. Then he stood up, removed his glasses, and shook his head slowly. "I'm sorry. It's cancer. Late stage. He may not survive the next 6 months." The room went silent. Ifeoma gasped and held her chest. Kamsi began to cry. "No, Daddy." Ibuka frowned deeply but said nothing. Samto whispered, 6 months? Amara dropped to the floor beside her father and held his hand. "Papa, please don't leave us." Chief Obesai coughed weakly and closed his eyes. For the first few days, everyone acted loving. They brought him fruits, sat beside him, prayed loudly, hugged him gently. But soon, the pretending began to fade. Ifeoma stopped sleeping in the same room. "It's too painful to see him like that," she said. Ibuka started talking to company staff without permission. Samto said he had to travel for business and left for a week. Ada and Kamsi were always busy, attending fashion shows and parties. Only Amara stayed. She woke up early to clean his room. She fed him warm pap with a spoon. She stayed up late singing to him even when he was asleep. She even washed his feet with warm water and massaged his weak legs. "Papa," she said one night, "I will be with you until the end." Chief Obesai looked at her with tears in his eyes. "Thank you, my child." He was not just pretending to be sick, he was watching, listening, taking notes. Meanwhile, the house changed. It was no longer peaceful. Downstairs, arguments broke out daily, about land, business, bank accounts, and cars. Ibuka even hosted a party in the house while his father lay, dying, upstairs. Chief Obesai heard the music, heard the laughter. heard the whispers. Soon everything here will be mine, Ibuka told his friends. I'll sell that land near the stream, Ada said to Kamsi. Why waste money treating him abroad? Ifeoma once told Amar. He'll still die. Chief Obesai coughed in bed, not from sickness, but from pain. His own family, the same ones he raised, fed, clothed, educated, and protected, were now waiting like hyenas for him to die. He turned to the wall one evening and whispered, "Oh God, was it all for this?" Amara came in and wiped his tears. "Don't cry, Papa," she said softly. "You'll be fine." He nodded slowly. But deep inside, his heart was breaking more than his body. It had been 3 weeks since Chief Obesai began pretending to be sick, and the cracks in the mighty house began to show. The mansion that once echoed with laughter and warmth now whispered with tension and greed. The housemaids no longer sang while sweeping. The driver avoided eye contact. Even the cook, Madame Neka, always carried her Bible close to her chest, praying softly whenever she passed the chief's door. Downstairs, the sitting room was no longer a family space. It had become a battleground. Ibuka, the first son, now walked around like a king. He no longer knocked on doors. He called staff to meetings without permission. He even hired a personal assistant named Tony, who followed him everywhere, holding files like he was a minister. One evening, Ibuka marched into the study where his father used to work. Amara was helping the chief sip water when she heard voices downstairs. "You're not the owner yet," Samto said from the hallway. Ibuka's voice thundered back. "Then who is?" "Papa is dying." Amara's hand froze. She looked down at her father. He was staring at the ceiling. His heart was breaking again. She whispered, "Ignore them, Papa. I'm here." But the storm downstairs was just beginning. The next day, Ibuka called for a board meeting. He arrived in a suit, even though the weather was hot. He wore dark glasses and walked with pride into the company headquarters. At the long boardroom table, familiar faces sat waiting, men and women who had served Chief Obesai for over 20 years. Among them was Uncle Osita, the chief's oldest friend and business partner. He had gray hair and a deep voice. "Good morning," Ibuka said, sitting at the head of the table. There was silence. "We all know my father is dying," he began. "So from now on I'll be in charge." Uncle Osita cleared his throat gently. "Ibuka, your father is still alive. We should wait." Ibuka slammed the table. "He's useless on that bed. We can't waste time." Another board member, Madame Nwakiko, raised her hand. "Let's form a support team while we wait for Chief's instructions." Ibuka stood up, pointing. "You're all fired. Every single one of you." There was chaos. Uncle Osita stood slowly. "You can't do that. This company is your father's life." Ibuka leaned forward. "Watch me." By the next day, over 15 loyal staff were forced to leave. Security guards were told to escort them out. The company began to shake. Back at the mansion, Amara cried when she heard. "Papa," she said as she sat beside him, "Ibuka has removed everyone." Chief Obesai closed his eyes and whispered, "Let them show me who they are." While Ibuka took over the company, Samto was making moves of his own. He started calling land agents. He began selling land documents secretly. One afternoon he drove to a popular hotel in town, the Sunrise Haven, a beautiful hotel that his father built with his own hands. The hotel manager, Mr. Ao, greeted him with a bow. "Welcome, sir. How may I help you?" Samto smiled. "I'm here to sell this hotel." Mr. Ao gasped. "But sir, this is your father's pride. He calls it his golden house." Samto's face changed. "My father is almost gone. We need money. Don't question me." Mr. Ao bowed, but as soon as Samto left, he picked up the phone and called Mr. Okaro, the family lawyer. "Sir," he said quietly, "something is not right. Samto is trying to sell the hotel." "Don't worry," Mr. Okaro replied. "We'll handle it." Within hours, Mr. Okaro sent trusted agents, people who looked like strangers, to buy the hotel. They signed the papers, gave Samto the money, and handed the real documents back to the lawyer for safekeeping. Samto thought he had succeeded. But the hotel was never lost. If you have watched to this point, it shows you're enjoying the story. Once again, thank you for subscribing to this channel. It means a lot to us. Now let's continue. At the mansion, things got worse. Ada and Kamsi started fighting over a piece of land near the river. Both believed it was meant for them. They argued loudly, throwing insults. "That land is mine," Ada shouted. "Daddy promised it to me." "Prove it," Kamsi yelled. "Your greedy mouth has no receipt." Amara walked in on them once while carrying her father's food. She paused at the door and shook her head in pain. She returned to her father, her eyes full of tears. "They're all fighting, Papa. Like you're already dead." Chief Obesai looked away. But the most painful blow came from the woman he married, Ifeoma, his wife of over 30 years. One night, Amara couldn't find her mother. She went to the kitchen, the garden, the study, nothing. Then she saw light coming from the back quarters. She walked slowly barefoot. Laughter. Soft music. Then, a giggle. She opened the door slightly and froze. There was Ifeoma, sitting on a younger man's lap. A man named Ben, the same man she introduced as her new driver. They were kissing. Amara gasped. "Mama," she whispered. Ifeoma jumped up. Ben ran to pick his shirt. Amara's voice shook. "Is this what you've been doing while Papa lies upstairs?" Ifeoma walked toward her. "You won't tell anyone. Do you hear me?" Amara turned and ran out, tears pouring down her face. That night, she sat beside her father, crying silently. 2 days later, Amara made a choice. She packed a small bag. She carried her father gently into the car with the help of the old driver. She didn't tell anyone. She took him far, far away, to Engwo, his birthplace. When the villagers saw them, they cried. They touched his feet. They brought food. One old woman held his hand and said, "This man helped us build our school. He paid for our children's books. We will not let him die here." They called for the village herbalist. When the herbalist came, he examined Chief Obesai and looked confused. "You don't have the sickness they told me." Chief smiled. "Because I was never sick." The herbalist blinked. It was all a test. That night, under the moonlight, the villagers gathered to sing and pray. Amara sat beside her father, wiping his forehead. He looked at her and whispered, "Now I know. My daughter, you are the only one who truly loves me." She squeezed his hand. "I'm always here, Papa." And for the first time in weeks, Chief Obesai smiled. In the quiet village of Engwo, far from the noise and greed of the city, Chief Obesai began to heal. Not his body, because he was never sick, but his heart. Every morning, he sat under a mango tree while Amara swept the compound and prepared herbs, just to keep the lie alive. The villagers brought gifts daily: eggs, palm wine, yams, roasted groundnuts. Some came just to sit by him and tell him how much they missed his presence. They called him Okidike, the Great Father. The village herbalist came to visit him every 3 days, not to give medicine, but to talk, to laugh, to pray. "You are not just a man of wealth," the herbalist said one evening. "You are a man of wisdom." Chief Obesai smiled. "But wisdom is painful sometimes." "It opens the eyes," the herbalist replied, "even when what we see breaks us." Back in the city, the mansion was falling apart, not physically but in spirit. Since Chief Obesai's departure, the house no longer felt like a home. Rooms stayed locked. The air was heavy with silence. Even the security guards looked confused. No one had seen Amara or the chief in days. The others barely noticed. Ibuka was busy holding emergency meetings at the company. Investors were pulling out. The company's debts were rising. The fashion line he had launched was a total failure, overpriced, poorly made, and ignored by customers. The billboard that once stood proudly on the expressway was now defaced with graffiti. David, the second son, returned from a failed business trip. His face was drawn, his eyes dark with stress. Ada and Kamsi had started avoiding each other completely after their recent fight. They barely spoke, barely smiled. The once vibrant living room now echoed with bitterness. One morning, Ibuka stormed into the mansion and slammed the door shut. Everyone turned to look. "We need to sell the Sunrise Haven Hotel," he barked. "The company will collapse if we don't." Cynthia blinked. "Which hotel?" "The one near the expressway." There was a pause. David stood slowly. "You mean the one I already sold?" Ibuka's face twisted. "What?" "I sold it 2 weeks ago." Ada screamed. "David, are you mad? You sold Papa's best hotel?" Kamsi shouted. "You didn't even tell anyone?" Ibuka roared. David pointed at Ibuka. "You're one to talk. You ruined the company, fired Papa's loyal workers, and threw parties with company money." Ibuka lunged at him. They grabbed each other's clothes, shouting and pushing. The housekeeper screamed. Plates fell. Chairs turned over. "Mama!" Ada shouted. "They're fighting again." Mama Ifeoma came rushing out, only to freeze as David pushed Ibuka onto the glass table. The table shattered. Both sons were panting, wild with rage. Mama, stop them! Ada screamed. But Ifeoma just stood there, speechless. She had no control anymore. The family was no longer a family. At that very hour, far away in the quiet village, Chief Obesai sat in the open courtyard with the elders of Engwo. They had gathered under the big Udala tree, a sacred tree for family discussions. I am ready to return, Chief Obesai said. But are you ready for what you'll find? Asked Elder Njoku. The chief looked ahead, his eyes calm. I've seen enough to make my judgment. Now I will act. The next morning, Amara helped him dress. He wore a clean white traditional outfit. His walking stick polished. His red cap straight. His eyes sharp. He looked like a lion again. As they drove down the dusty road toward the mansion, the villagers stood by the roadside, waving and clapping. Some sang praises. Chief is well again. The great father has returned. Even the wind seemed to blow in celebration. When the car pulled up in front of the mansion, the security men froze. One of them dropped his phone. The other stepped back in fear. Chief Obesai stepped out gently, supported by Amara. Through that? Chief, one guard stammered. I thought he was dying, whispered the other. But the old man was alive, and stronger than ever. He looked around the compound and smiled. Time to wake them up, he said. Inside the house, Ada was scrolling through her phone when she heard the front door open. She turned casually, then froze. Daddy? David was descending the stairs when he saw his father standing at the door. He removed his headphones slowly, like he was in a dream. Papa? Ibuka came from the kitchen holding a bottle of wine. When his eyes met Chief Obesai's, the bottle slipped from his hand and smashed on the floor. Why, you're okay? From the corridor, Ifeoma's voice rang out. What broke again in this house? She turned the corner and stopped. Her eyes went wide. The glass in her hand fell and shattered. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Good afternoon, Chief Obesai said. Then he turned to Amar. Let's go inside. She nodded. Yes, Papa. They walked past the frozen family and climbed the stairs to the master bedroom. No one moved. It was as if the house had seen a ghost. But it wasn't a ghost. It was a lion, and he was back. That night, the family sat in silence in the living room. No one spoke. Until the door opened again. This time, it was Mr. Okoro, the family lawyer. He held a small black box and a folder. Behind him, Chief Obesai entered slowly, his head held high. I have already explained everything to Mr. Okoro, he said. The lawyer nodded. Yes. And now, he wants to explain to all of you. They stared at him, still too shocked to breathe properly. Chief Obesai stepped forward and pointed at the black box. He opened it. Inside were 3 small cameras and a USB stick. I recorded everything, he said quietly. You thought I was dying. But I was watching. And now, it's time to speak. The living room felt like a courtroom. The air was tight. No fan could cool it. The couches that once brought comfort now felt like prison benches. Everyone sat stiffly, Ibuka, David, Ada, Kamsi, and their mother, Ifeoma. At the center of the room stood Chief Obesai, the lion of Aji River, strong, calm, and fierce once again. Beside him stood Mr. Okoro, the family lawyer, holding a leather folder and a black box of evidence. Amara stood quietly behind them, her eyes full of sadness, but also strength. Chief Obesai looked at each of them one by one. I was never sick, he said clearly. Not even for a day. No one spoke. The doctor's report was fake. The weakness was fake. The cough fake. The entire thing was a test. Ada gasped. Ibuka's jaw dropped slightly. David looked down, guilt thick in his throat. I wanted to see who truly loved me, Chief continued. I wanted to know who would care for me when I had nothing left to give. He paused, letting the silence press on them. And now, I know. He turned sharply to Ibuka, his first son. You sacked the people who helped me build my company. You hired your friends, threw wild parties, and opened a useless fashion brand with company money. Ibuka's mouth opened to defend himself, but Chief raised a hand. I gave you the crown before I died, and you set fire to it. Ibuka dropped his head. His lips trembled. Chief then turned to David. You sold my hotel. My most prized property. The one I built with my bare hands. You sold it like it meant nothing. David whispered, Papa, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry to me. Be sorry to yourself. Because that hotel was meant to be your inheritance. Now, it's gone from you forever. Chief turned to Ada and Kamsi, his daughters. You fought like market women over land that isn't even yours yet. You cried fake tears beside my bed, and the next moment you were shouting about plots of land and family shares. Ada began to cry. Kamsi folded her arms tightly and looked away. Then, slowly, Chief turned to Ifeoma, his wife. He stared at her for a long time, a silence so deep it burned the room. You left me. You mocked me. You brought a boy into my house, and called him your driver. But I saw everything. He pointed at the black box on the table. I recorded it all. Your laughter. Your kisses. Your betrayal. Ifeoma broke down. Darling, please. I am not your darling, Chief said coldly. Not anymore. She dropped to her knees, wailing. Please. Don't send me away. I was lonely. I didn't mean to. Chief stepped back. You had a husband. You had children. You had a home. You threw all of it away. He turned to Mr. Okoro. You have the eviction letter? The lawyer nodded and handed over a brown envelope. Chief looked at the guards at the door. Give her 24 hours. Help her pack. Let her go peacefully. But permanently. Ifeoma screamed louder, clutching his leg. Forgive me, please. Don't disgrace me this way. Chief didn't move. Amara stepped forward and gently helped her mother up. Mom, go with your dignity. Please. Ifeoma sobbed as the guards led her upstairs. No one said a word. Chief turned back to his children. He looked at Ibuka and David. You two will no longer step into my company again. You will no longer touch a dime from my business. You have wasted your inheritance. From now on, find your own path. He turned to Ada and Kamsi. If you want to earn anything from me, work for it. Show loyalty, respect, kindness. If not, you will receive nothing when I'm gone. He turned to Amara, his eyes now soft. But this one stood by me. Amara lowered her head, tears in her eyes. She fed me, cleaned me, stayed beside me when everyone else ran away. She took me back to my village. She begged the gods for my healing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key, a golden key. From today, Amara is the new CEO of my company. She is now the owner of all my remaining businesses, lands, and properties. She is the one who passed the test. Gasps filled the room. Ibuka's mouth dropped. David collapsed back into the couch. Ada clutched her chest. Kamsi whispered, It's not possible. But Amara was frozen. Papa, she whispered, I didn't do all that for a reward. I know, Chief replied. That's why you deserve everything. He turned to Mr. Okoro. Call the staff I built the company with. The old men. The loyal women. Tell them to return. Their places are ready again. Mr. Okoro bowed. Already in progress, sir. Chief looked around the room one last time. You all failed me. But Amara saved me. Then he turned, walked upstairs with steady steps, and closed the door behind him. Only silence remained. The kind of silence that falls after a storm has passed, but leaves everything changed forever. The very next morning, the mansion woke up to a new sound. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't glass breaking. It wasn't the bitter voice of a sibling arguing over land. It was the sound of Amara's gentle voice, giving calm, respectful instructions. Please tell the old gardener to return. Let Mama Neka know she's welcome back in the kitchen. Make sure the company driver is picked up by 9 a.m. The maids and guards watched her in awe. She didn't wear a suit. She didn't shout. She didn't show off. But her voice carried authority. She had become Madame Amara, the youngest child. The quiet one, the one everyone overlooked, had now become the lioness of the Obesai Empire. At the company headquarters, workers were shocked to see their old colleagues returning. Uncle Osita entered the building again, holding his worn brown briefcase. Madame Nwakigo returned to her desk with teary eyes. Is this real? She asked a junior staff member. Very real, he said. Chief has given everything to Amara. Inside the boardroom, Amara stood before the team, nervous but firm. I know things have been hard, she said. And I know many of you were treated unfairly. She paused, then smiled gently. But today we begin again. Together. They clapped. Some clapped loudly. Some clapped with tears. Uncle Osita stood up and said, You have brought back peace, my child. Your father did not make a mistake. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, the rest of the family was still in shock. Ibuka refused to come out of his room. He sat in silence, staring at his empty briefcase. The same one he used to carry around to feel powerful. David was seen in the backyard pacing up and down, his phone in hand, calling contacts and trying to find a new business job. No one answered. Ada and Kamsi sat in the same corner of the living room, too embarrassed to speak to each other. Both had tried to call Amara earlier, but she hadn't picked. Even Ifeoma, their mother, had been escorted out of the house as instructed. Quietly. No drama. No second chances. For the first time in years, the entire family had to stop and look at themselves clearly, and what they saw was not beautiful. Amara, though calm, felt heavy in her heart. One evening, she sat beside her father on the veranda as the sun set behind the mango trees. "Papa, I didn't expect any of this." Chief Obasai looked at her and smiled. "I know. I only did what I felt was right. And that's what makes you worthy." Amara stared at the sky. "But I still love them, Papa. All of them." "That's why I chose you," Chief said. "Because your love is not tied to money." He coughed lightly and reached for her hand. "Let the rest learn. Let them grow. But don't ever give them your peace if they haven't earned your trust." Amara nodded. "I understand." Soon, the company began to change. Suppliers returned. Old customers reached out. Investors who had withdrawn sent emails requesting meetings again. The news spread across the city. Obasai Group is back, and under new, better leadership. Some newspapers called it a miracle. Some said it was luck. But those who worked inside knew the truth. It was love and discipline. Amara was not just a leader, she was a servant. She didn't shout. She didn't insult. She listened. She fixed what was broken. One elderly staff, Papa Ajik, said it best during a lunch break. Her father faked a sickness, but she brought a real healing. One Sunday morning, Amara received a call from Mr. Okoro. "There's something I'd like to discuss in person," he said. When he arrived at the house, he handed her a sealed envelope and said, "Your father asked me to prepare this months ago. It's a letter, not a legal one, but something he wanted only you to read when the time was right." Amara took the envelope and sat under the mango tree alone. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. The letter. "My dear Amara, if you are reading this, then the storm is over, and I am either watching from afar or smiling nearby. You were always different. Not the loudest. Not the strongest. But the kindest. When I pretended to be weak, you became my strength. When I acted like I was dying, you gave me life. All I wanted was to know who truly loved me when there was nothing left to gain. You passed that test not because you were perfect, but because you were true. My wealth is yours now, not because of blood, but because of love. Lead with the same heart you used to hold my hands, and no one will ever shake your throne. Love always. Your father, Chief Obasai." Amara wept. Not loud tears. Just soft, steady drops. She folded the letter, held it to her chest and whispered, "Thank you, Papa." For a while, peace returned to the Obasai mansion. The air felt clean again. The staff walked with smiles. Even the flowers in the garden bloomed brighter, as if they too could feel the difference. But storms don't always end forever. Sometimes they return angrier, louder, and more dangerous. It started with a letter. A letter dropped at the mansion gate. The guard picked it up and brought it straight to Amara. The envelope was plain brown, no name on the front. Just a thick seal on the back. She opened it slowly. Inside were photocopies of land sale receipts, signed by David, for properties he didn't own. Amara's hands trembled. "He's still selling Papa's land?" she whispered. She immediately called Mr. Okoro, the lawyer. "Sir, I think David is still pretending to control company assets." Mr. Okoro sighed. "Let's meet tomorrow. I'll bring more documents." The next day, they met in Chief Obasai's study. The chief listened quietly. After Mr. Okoro finished speaking, the chief leaned back and said, "They still haven't learned." Elsewhere in town, David sat in a restaurant with a shady land agent, laughing over grilled catfish and beer. "Just push the papers through," David said. "They won't ask questions. My father is too weak to argue." But someone nearby was recording with a phone. It was Madame Nwakigo's son, who had come to eat at the same restaurant by chance. He sent the video straight to Amara. By evening, it was clear, David had not stopped his greed. He was still trying to sell what wasn't his. At the mansion, Amara didn't react with anger. Instead, she called a private family meeting. They all came, though some reluctantly. Ibuka sat with arms folded. Ada came with dark glasses, looking annoyed. Kamsi stayed near the wall. David walked in with confidence, pretending not to know why he was summoned. Amara stood by the fireplace, dressed in a simple long gown. "I called you here," she said, Because I want to give you one last chance to return what is not yours. They looked at her, confused. David, she said, you sold land that Papa had transferred to the new business name. You had no right. David scoffed. What proof do you have? Amara picked up the printed video from the table and handed it to him. This was taken 2 days ago. Your voice. Your face. Your words. David's face changed. He looked down. Then up. Then down again. Silence. Chief Obesai stepped into the room slowly, leaning on his walking stick. So you are still the same, he said. David dropped to his knees. Papa, forgive me. I was desperate. The world is hard. I thought. You thought I was still weak? Chief snapped. You thought I would not see? Please, David begged. Give me one more chance. Chief turned to Amar. It is no longer my place to judge. It is hers. David looked up at his sister, shocked. You'll let me suffer? Amara said nothing at first. Then she replied. I'll let you choose. Either you return everything you took, apologize to every staff member you disrespected, and rebuild your character, or you walk away and never touch anything related to this family again. David was silent. You have 2 days, she added. After that, the door closes. That night, news reached Ibuka that a big investor had returned to the Obesai company, someone who had once promised to work only with him. But now, the investor only wanted to deal with Amara. Ibuka's pride couldn't take it. He barged into Amara's office the next morning. So this is how it ends? He shouted. Ends? Amara said calmly. You never really began. I'm your elder brother, he snapped. I built this name before you were even old enough to speak. And you almost destroyed it before I could even dream. You think you're better than me? No, Amara said softly. But I'm better than the person you've become. He stormed out. Meanwhile, Ada and Kamsi were not left out. The two sisters, after weeks of silent competition, finally sat together one night and cried. We've turned into something ugly, Ada whispered. We let money change us, Kamsi replied. They both agreed to apologize to their father and to Amara. The next day they did just that. Chief Obesai listened. He didn't hug them, but he nodded. And sometimes, a nod from a lion means more than 1,000 words. As the week ended, Amara visited her father in the garden. He was reading an old newspaper, glasses on his nose. She sat beside him quietly. Papa, are you disappointed? Chief looked up slowly. Yes. But not in you. She smiled faintly. It's hard leading people you love. Yes, he nodded. But that's why the crown is heavy. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden carving, a lion's head. I carved this when I was your age, he said. I kept it to remind me that leadership is not about showing teeth. It's about protecting the pride. He placed it in her hand. You are the pride now. Amara held the lion close. The wind blew softly through the trees. And far in the distance, the sky rumbled, a warning that another storm might come. But this time, the pride had a true leader. The Obesai mansion had become quieter again, but it wasn't the peace of joy, it was the silence of watching and waiting. Each member of the family had been given a chance to redeem themselves. Some tried. Some didn't. But one of them still had something hidden. His name was Franklin, the first son. The one who once sat in the CEO's chair. The one who threw parties, spent millions, and fired loyal workers. While Amara rebuilt the company and welcomed back trusted staff, Franklin had been making moves in secret. Late-night calls. Secret meetings with property agents. Even trips to the city registrar's office. He had one final plan, a last gamble to take back everything. It began with a forged document. Franklin found an old deed to one of the company's waterfront lands, land his father had reserved for a future hospital project. He hired a corrupt surveyor and a greedy lawyer to re-register the land under a fake company, one he created using a dead friend's name. He planned to sell it to an international developer for billions of naira. Once I get that money, he told his friend, I'll build my own empire. Let Amara keep her little office. The friend asked, but what if they find out? Franklin scoffed. Please. Amara is too busy playing Mother Teresa. She'll never notice. But he was wrong. That same week, Amara's assistant brought a suspicious file to her desk. Madam, look at this. It's from the city land records. Amara opened the folder. She blinked, then frowned. This land is under the company, but this paper says someone else now owns it? Her hands gripped the file tighter. Check who signed the transfer. The assistant nodded and returned an hour later, pale. Meh, it's your brother Franklin. Amara stood up slowly. Call Mr. Okoro. And tell the board we're having an emergency meeting tomorrow. That evening, Amara knocked on her father's room. He sat reading beside the window. Papa, I need to show you something. She handed him the file. He read it, then closed it slowly. He removed his glasses and said just 3 words. He did it. The next morning, the boardroom was full. The old workers were seated. Mr. Okoro stood at the corner. Franklin walked in confidently, wearing a navy blue suit, pretending to check emails on his phone. He didn't know what was coming. Amara stood at the head of the table. Good morning, she said. This is not a regular meeting. Today, we discuss something very serious, fraud. Everyone turned. Franklin looked up, confused. Amara held up the land document. Someone tried to steal this land using fake names and illegal registration. That someone is my brother. The room went silent. Franklin slowly stood up. That's a lie. Amara placed another document on the table, the real audio recording of his voice, from a phone tap. They all listened. She's too soft. She won't notice. I'll get the money and disappear. Franklin froze. Mr. Okoro stepped forward. This recording is real. We traced the bank details. The fake company is under your name. Franklin looked around. His eyes darted. His tongue dried. I was only trying to help, he stuttered. Chief Obasai entered the room just then. He had heard everything. He didn't say a word at first. He only walked to Franklin and looked him in the eye. You betrayed me, he said quietly. Again. Franklin dropped to his knees. Papa, please. Chief raised his hand. You have been warned before. And now, you've crossed the final line. He turned to the guards outside the door. Escort him out of this building. And make sure he never returns. Franklin wept loudly. Papa, you're my father. You can't do this. Chief Obasai replied, voice like thunder. I am your father. And that's why you should have honored me. Franklin was dragged away. The staff watched in silence. Some shook their heads. Others looked at Amara and nodded with respect. Later that day, Amara sat in her office, her hands shaking slightly. It hurt, not just the betrayal but the fact that it never ended. Her phone buzzed. It was her father. Come home. Let's talk. That evening, they sat in the backyard again, under the orange sky. Papa, she said, will this ever stop? Betrayal doesn't die easily, Chief replied. Especially when pride is alive. I tried to give them a chance. And you did well. You gave them more than I would have. Amara sighed. I want peace, Papa. You've built it already, he said. But peace is not the absence of trouble. It's your ability to hold your head high when trouble comes. He looked at her with pride. You've done what none of them could. You passed the test. That night, Amara wrote a letter. Not to herself. Not to her siblings. But to the company, to every single worker. She told them the truth. About the pain. The betrayal. The mistakes. And the healing. She ended it with these words. This company is not built on money. It's built on love, sweat, and trust. And as long as I live, I will protect it with my whole heart. Because this legacy is not mine alone, it belongs to all of us. The next morning, the letter was shared across every branch. People cried. People clapped. And in that moment, the company changed, not in name, but in soul. The week that followed was like a new sunrise for the Obasai family. The gates of the mansion no longer creaked from tension. The air inside the company offices smelled of hard work and honesty. Even the walls of the once broken home felt warmer, like they were finally breathing again. But something still weighed on Amara's heart. Not business. Not betrayal. But the silence in the family. The kind that comes after a storm, when everyone is too ashamed to speak. Her siblings were still living in the mansion, but no one spoke freely. Ada stayed in her room, often crying quietly behind her door. Kamsi spent most of her time reading old letters from their father. David no longer smiled. He kept to himself, helping with small things around the house. Franklin had left. No one knew where he went, but Amara felt all of it. And one evening, she made a decision. I won't lead a family I can't talk to, she said to herself. It's time for a real conversation. She waited for a Sunday. A quiet one. No business meetings. No visitors. Just family. She prepared the dining room herself, with her own hands. She told the cook to take the day off. She cooked jollof rice, grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, and made her late mother's famous ginger drink recipe. Then she called them one by one. "Please come downstairs," she said. "We're having a family dinner." They were surprised. No one had sat together in months. But slowly they came. Ada first in a simple wrapper. Then Kamsi with a book still in her hand. David came quietly holding a bowl of fruit. Chief Obasai entered last with a curious look. They all sat down. Amara stood before them, wearing a plain gown and a soft expression. "Thank you for coming," she began. Everyone stayed silent. "I didn't call this dinner to remind you of your mistakes," she said. "I called it to remind you of what we still have." She looked around the table. "We are not perfect. We hurt each other. We failed Papa. We failed ourselves. But we are still here." Her voice trembled slightly. This mansion was built with love. But it almost collapsed because of pride. It doesn't matter who has more money. It doesn't matter who owns what. We lost something more important, our family bond. She paused, breathing in deeply. "But I believe we can build it again." Kamsi was the first to cry. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything. I was selfish." Ada stood up. Her eyes were red. She walked to Amara and hugged her. "You're a better big sister than I ever was a small one." David cleared his throat. "I wanted Papa's approval so badly. I forgot how to be his son." Chief Obasai wiped his eyes slowly. "You've made me proud again," he said softly. "You've brought my children back to my table." They all turned to him, surprised to see tears rolling down his cheeks. "I wasn't perfect either," he said. "I made mistakes. I should have spoken earlier. I should have trained you better." Amara walked over and placed her hand on his. "But you did your best, Papa. And it was enough." They held hands. The food was shared. Laughter returned, slow and uncertain at first, but then full and loud. They talked for hours. Shared stories from childhood. Teased one another. And when the moon rose high in the sky, they all sat quietly around the table, as if afraid to move and break the peace they had just found again. Later that night, Amara stood by her bedroom window. The house was quiet again. But this time, it was a peaceful quiet. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Mama, wherever you are." She thought of the little girl she used to be, the one who watched her siblings race for their father's attention. And now, here she was, not just a daughter, but the heart of the home. The next day, Amara arrived at the company early. She walked past the receptionist with a smile. The woman stood up quickly. "Madam Amara, someone is waiting for you in your office." Amara entered. There stood a tall man in a brown suit. He turned and smiled. "Good morning. I'm from the Ministry of Trade. We're here to award your company for excellence in business leadership." Amara blinked. "What?" The man smiled again. "Your staff nominated you. Your clients voted. The results were clear." He handed her a plaque. 2025 National Award for Most Transformational Business Leader, presented to Amara Obasai. She held it with both hands. And smiled, not because of the award, but because of the journey. The betrayal. The pain. The long nights beside her father's bed. The quiet prayers. The steady leadership. It had all led to this. As she walked out to show her father the award, the company's workers began to clap. One by one. Then all together. And Amara realized something. This wasn't just a business anymore. It was a home. It was a story. It was a family healed, humbled, and finally whole. The morning sun spilled gently across the Obasai mansion, dancing on the polished tiles, warming the rooms that once held so much pain. Chief Obasai sat in the garden under the mango tree, wearing his favorite white kaftan, a small carved walking stick by his side. His hair, though white, glowed in the light. His eyes, though aged, still held wisdom. Amara walked toward him, holding the award plaque carefully with both hands. He looked up slowly as she approached. "What's that?" he asked with a small smile. "It's for you," she said. "We won. You and I." She placed the award in his hands and knelt beside him. "The company is alive, Papa. The family is healing. We're okay now." Chief Obasai stared at the words on the plaque, his hand trembling slightly. "Most transformational business leader." He chuckled quietly. "Who would have thought it would be you?" "You did," Amara whispered. "No," he replied. "I only hoped. But you proved it." That afternoon, the entire family gathered in the living room again. But this time, no one was forced. There was no fighting. No fake concern. Only peace. David had returned from speaking to the workers he once mistreated, apologizing to each one, in person. Ada had volunteered to help organize the company's first ever women's mentorship program. Kamsi had started designing a new logo for the company, something modern, but still rooted in their family's values. And even Franklin, though still away, had sent a message. I need time. But I'll return one day. I want to be better. Chief Obesai sat at the center of the room. He cleared his throat. Everyone turned. I called you all here, he said, because I want to share something before I leave this world. The room went still. No, I'm not dying yet, he added, smiling. But time waits for no man. They relaxed and laughed. He continued. When I was a young man, I thought success was having land, cars, and big money. But now I know, true success is building something that lives beyond you. He looked around at his children. I built a business, yes. But I also built a family. And I almost lost both. He paused. But Amara, you saved it all. He turned to her with pride. You didn't just lead a company. You reminded your brothers and sisters what love feels like. You reminded me what family means. Amara's eyes filled with tears. You carried my name without disgracing it. He reached into a wooden box beside him and pulled out a folded cloth, the Obesai family chieftain staff wrapper, worn by only the family head. This is not just cloth. It is a symbol. A trust. He stood slowly and wrapped it over Amara's shoulders. From today, he declared, you are not just my daughter. You are the heart of this family. Everyone stood up and clapped. Ada hugged her tightly. Kamsi wiped her eyes. David nodded slowly. You deserve it, sis. Even the house staff stood at the doorway, clapping with wide smiles. The moment was sacred. Later that evening, Amara sat with her father in his room. I don't want the title, Papa. I just want our family to stay this way. Chief Obesai laughed. Then keep doing what you've been doing. Lead with kindness. Correct with love. Never let power change your heart. He pointed to her chest. That's where the true crown lives. She leaned on his shoulder, silent. What happens when you're gone, Papa? He smiled. Then my story ends. But yours continues. And your children will tell it. The workers will tell it. The village will tell it. Tell what? That once, there lived a girl who proved that love is the greatest power of all. The next day, Amara walked through the company like she always did, not like a boss, but like a caretaker. She checked on the cleaners. She thanked the security guards. She joined a new intern for lunch. And in every room, every hallway, every office, you could feel something special. You could feel legacy. A few weeks later, an old teacher from Amara's secondary school visited the office. He looked at her proudly and said, You've grown into a woman this nation can be proud of. Thank you, sir, she said shyly. He smiled and added, What's next? Amara looked out the window, where children were running around the company grounds during a school visit. She smiled. Next, we build schools. We build leaders. We build people. And just like that, her next journey began. Not just as CEO, not just as daughter, but as the woman who turned pain into purpose and legacy into love. Years passed. The seasons came and went. The rains fell on the red soil of Aji River, washing away the dust of old pain. Children were born. Businesses rose. And a new name began to spread across the region, not Chief Obesai's, but Amara's. They called her many things. The daughter who healed a dynasty. The girl who led with grace. The heart of the Obesai family. But to those who knew her closely, she was still simply Amara, the girl who once knelt by her father's sickbed and fed him pap with a spoon, not knowing he was testing the very soul of his family. Chief Obesai lived long enough to see more than peace. He saw legacy. He saw his grandchildren play in the same halls that once echoed with fights and betrayal. He saw his sons working not for power, but with purpose. He saw his daughters rebuild their bond, not over money, but shared memories. And when his time finally came, it was quiet. A cool evening. A gentle breeze. Amara was by his side, holding his hand as he took his final breath. You did well, he whispered. And you made me proud, she replied. And with a peaceful smile, the lion slept. The funeral was grand, as expected. Kings came. Old politicians came. Even poor villagers walked miles to attend. But what made the day special wasn't the gold casket or the long speeches. It was the one story that kept spreading from mouth to mouth. A little girl at the village gate asked her grandmother, Who was Chief Obesai? The old woman smiled and replied, He was the man who faked his death, just to find real love. And that story passed from tongue to tongue. From village to city. From city to classroom. From classroom to news pages. They told it not because of his riches, but because of his wisdom. And Amara? She didn't stop. She built schools in the villages her father once helped. She gave scholarships to orphans. She created jobs for widows and shelters for street children. One day, a young reporter asked her during a live interview, "Madam Amara, what inspired you to give so much?" She smiled softly and said, "I was once the daughter of a man who gave everything to his family and almost died without knowing who truly loved him." "And did he ever find out?" "Yes," she said. "He did." "And how?" "He listened, not with his ears, but with his heart." Today, in the heart of the East, there is a statue in front of the Obesai Legacy Center. It is not a statue of Chief Obesai. It is a statue of Amara, holding a book in one hand and a bowl of pap in the other. The plaque beneath it reads, "In honor of the child who served with love and led with truth." Moral of the story: when a tree is full of fruit, people gather. But when the fruit is gone, only those who truly love you will remain under its shade. Wealth can build a house, but only love makes it a home. If you ever want to know who truly cares, don't test them with gifts. Test them with your silence, your weakness, and your need. For in hard times, the heart speaks the loudest. 5 key takeaway. 1. True love is proven in hard times. Many people will stay when there's wealth, comfort, and ease. But only a few will remain when you have nothing to offer. Real love is not loud. It is loyal. 2. Leadership is not about position. It's about compassion. Amara led not because she was the oldest or the most powerful, but because she had the heart to serve. She listened, cared, forgave, and protected, and that's what made her a true leader. 3. Family can be broken, but it can also be rebuilt. Even when betrayal and greed shattered the Obesai family, forgiveness and humility helped bring healing. Pain doesn't have to be the final story. With effort, families can find their way back. 4. Power without character destroys legacy. Franklin and David had opportunities, but they let greed and pride ruin everything. A great name, business, or family means nothing if your heart is full of selfishness. 5. The greatest inheritance is not money, it's wisdom and integrity. In the end, Chief Obesai passed down more than land or company shares. He passed down a lesson, a story, a legacy. And Amara carried it forward not with gold, but with grace. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please share your thoughts in the comments section and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you'll know when we upload our next story.